Hey guys, I thought I would make a quick video. First of all, thanks for coming and clicking on this video to give it a listen. I wanted to let you know that I do have a stream planned later today. I'm going to be testing Rumble Studio, which appears to be stepping up quite a bit, and it could be a very good substitute for the platform that I currently use, which is Restream.io, in combination with several plugins on my Open Broadcaster software, or OBS. So be on the lookout for that a little bit later. Also, I want to welcome all of the new folks that have joined our Discord server. It is growing at a rate that I am very pleased with. And hopefully you all will join me as well by clicking on the link in the description. It's free. Just come on into the Discord. We're just exchanging ideas, sharing our love of our various hobbies and interests, and also trying to sort of help each other navigate this extremely turbulent social, cultural, and political climate. So with all that out of the way, I wanted to talk a little bit about this Assassin's Creed Shadows game that everyone is talking about, specifically a bit about the YAASSUke character that is supposed to be the playable protagonist in the game. I'm sure there's lots of other people who have done really good and in-depth examinations into the history of this real person named YAASSUke, and I think that's all fine and dandy and great, but I think it kind of misses the real point here. You see, there have always been historical characters in Assassin's Creed games, but they were never playable characters with very few exceptions. For example, in Assassin's Creed 2, there was Leonardo da Vinci, or just Leonardo, Lorenzo de Medici, and Rodrigo Borgia. These were actual historical people that lived, but they weren't playable. They were characters that your character interacted with. And that was for most of the series. For example, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood has Caesar Borgia and Machiavelli. Assassin's Creed Revelation has Piri Reis. Assassin's Creed 3 has George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Charles Lee. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag has Edward Thatch, that's Blackbeard the pirate, Charles Vane, Annie Bonny. Assassin's Creed Unity had the Marquis de Sade, Napoleon Bonaparte, and there's been other historical figures who have appeared in other games. Charles Darwin, I believe Karl Marx was in one, Cleopatra, etc. But you weren't able to play any of them. You were sort of like, passing through history as the fictional character that you played as, with a couple of exceptions. I think that in some games, some of the later ones, you did play as historical characters for small sections, short parts of the game. For example, in Assassin's Creed 3, you played as Haytham Kenway, and in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, you played as Queen Victoria in a piece of DLC. In Assassin's Creed Odyssey, you played as Leonidas First. So YAASSUke would be very unique in that it is a historical figure that you actually play as the main protagonist. It's on all the marketing this way, and this is how it's sold. So first of all, that makes it really unique in that regard. And I think it's worth pointing out because it does sort of make you wonder about whether or not this game is trying to pander. And of course, there is this precedent that they are trying to set by saying, well, look, this is a person who really lived, so this can't be pandering unless you want to deny history. And of course, all roads lead to you are a racist bigot if you question this. That's why they set it up this way. But then the things that they're doing, the liberties that they appear to be taking with the figure of YAASSUke, seems a little bit odd, especially considering that even the Japanese, there's a video that Cabrutus Rambo did where he went on the streets of Japan and he asked various people how they felt about this, and they weren't thrilled. And of course, the video was downvoted because they probably would have appreciated an actual Japanese person to play the protagonist in a game that takes place in the feudal period of Japan. With this figure of YAASSUke, we don't really know a lot. It is said that he's from Mozambique, but he could have been from other parts of Africa, such as Ethiopia or Sudan. And his name itself, YAASSUke, is thought to be a Japanese rendition of his original name, which we still don't know. We have an idea about when he arrived in Japan and that he was a servant or maybe a bodyguard. Again, we don't know. to the Jesuit missionary Alessandro Valignano, and he was a visitor of missions in the Indies and responsible for inspecting Jesuit missions in the East. And of course, there are stories of Jesuits and missionaries going to Japan. In fact, the extremely highly acclaimed novel and subsequent television series Shogun, which was a novel adapt that was made in like the late 70s, and then the first television series came out in the I think it was 1980, and there was a very recent sort of a version of the show on FX and Hulu that was very, very well done, and it was about the same thing. It had a white man character, Blackthorn, who was from England, but I think a lot of people mistake that he was the main character. He was in fact not. It's kind of like the same thing that they do when they talk about the film The Last Samurai featuring Tom Cruise. The Last Samurai and Shogun are not in fact white savior movies, despite what they will tell you, not by a long shot. These are essentially serving as the windows to this other world. So we, the viewers who are not Japanese, we are looking at the world, this exotic, strange land through the eyes of a Westerner who is portrayed by either Blackthorn or Aldrin, depending on which of the stories we're talking about, Last Samurai or Shogun. And so they're sort of drifting through it, and of course they're learning about these things, but the stories are not about them. They are essentially passengers. We are experiencing the story through them. And this is probably the most respectful and honestly a really good way to tell a story about another world. And there are plenty of stories that have done this in other ways. It is simply the fish out of water trope, which you see over and over. For example, Alice in Wonderland, The Wizard of Oz, they are the same thing. A person who is normal and mundane goes to another world, and they are exposed to all these things they've never seen before. It could be different languages, foods, experiences, people, etc. And this is the same. So as a comparison, the story of Last Samurai and Shogun are not comparable. They are not intended to be, and again, the stories are not about them. In fact, the title, The Last Samurai, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that it's referring to Tom Cruise's character, Aldrin, but it is not. It is in fact referring to, firstly, the word samurai is sort of like the word ninja, where the word could be used as a singular or a plural. And in this case, The Last Samurai refers to the last of the samurai warrior class who are holding out in a changing Japan. And if you watch the film, you'll see that that's what it's about. It's about a bunch of soldiers, warriors who are expected to die for their lord, that are in a difficult position of doing what they believe is correct, despite the fact that it puts them at odds with the lord that they are sworn to defend. And Aldrin is caught up in this old conflict, and that is what is really about. And they are in fact the last of the samurai warriors. So I said all that to say that the precedent that is being used to excuse the YAASSUke thing, or at least as a defense of that, are these kind of white savior, and I put that in quotes, films and shows, but it's not about that at all. And they just don't understand what the truth of the media is, or they're lying about it, which is also so. Like I said before, we don't know much about the character of YAASSUke. We know that people's instincts to say that there's something wrong here is not unfounded. For one, it is setting a precedent for having an actual historical figure as a playable character as the protagonist, which has never been done in this franchise before. Number two, taking a lot of liberties because there is very little written about this person. So they're filling in the blanks. And I think this is another thing that you have to be concerned with, because you have to be in love with the truth in all things. You have to love the truth about history in particular. The people we're dealing with here, bear in mind, they are not interested in historical accuracy. They are not interested in the groups that they claim that they are trying to protect or advocate for. They are not interested in any of that. They are interested in rewriting canon. And I've said this on other videos where I've talked about how the storylines for example, video games or fictions like film or television or animation gets a little bit distorted. And then the people who do these things, think of localizers, for example, that have butchered, the language that they're attempting to localize because they're adding a bunch of modern ideas or concepts to it. They're not doing this simply because they think it would be more relatable. They're doing this because they want to control what the truth is, and they do it by controlling what history is. And they first do it with fictional history. And if they get away with it in fictional history, then they're going to get away with it in actual history. And this is a very important milestone, which is why I would normally not make a video about something that appeared to be so petty, but I feel like it's important to say. Yasuke was a real person that really lived, and he has a real story. Unfortunately, for one reason or another, not a lot about this person has been written down, which leaves a lot open. Now, these people, these activists playing as game designers and story consultation groups will tell you that this is an opportunity to essentially fill in the blanks. But this is extremely irresponsible and dangerous. And that's being expressed right here because it shatters reality and it really upsets people, in particular, Japanese people who are very concerned about their history, and with good reason. We all should be concerned about our history, the history of our nations, of our peoples, right? It's a big deal. So when they tell you, oh yeah, he was given, like a samurai title by Oda Nobunaga, there's not really a lot of evidence for this other than Nobunaga, who was already kind of Western fascinated, and he was looking to use, the Western influence to essentially unify Japan at the time. He was fascinated by Yasuke's appearance because he had never seen an African before. So of course that was going to interest him. And he was given the status of a samurai, but that doesn't mean that he was trained in martial arts. Samurai is mistakenly conflated with being a kind of fighting person, like a martial artist, a warrior. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It's kind of like being knighted in Britain, right? When Patrick Stewart, the actor, was knighted, he didn't become a warrior because he was an actor. He was just someone who was worthy of some acclaim. Now, of course, Christopher Lee was a badass, but that's another story. He was also knighted. So yeah, I mean, basically, from what we know, Yasuke maybe served as a bodyguard, may have been a slave, may have been a servant. We just don't know. And the way that these words are defined makes it very difficult to know for sure. Again, like I said, there wasn't a lot written down. And from what we know, he only participated in one battle, and it was a battle that they lost. So we don't know what, any of this is about. This was essentially when Nobunaga was betrayed by his general Mitsuhide Akechi and was forced to commit seppuku. And he was then captured. Yasuke was captured by Akechi's forces, and that's all we know. Supposedly he may have been sent to another Jesuit mission. We just don't know. So there isn't a lot of information, and Ubisoft, because they've always been pretty woke, is going to try to change the narrative around the character through the video game. And by the way, this is worth pointing out as well. For a very long time, activist game developers have been saying, I mean like at least 10 years, if not longer, that video games, not as a means of recreation or entertainment, but as a means of education, is going to be very important. And if you know how bad it is in academia with wokeness, well, I will show you a little clip of what kind of degrees people are getting in college campuses today.
Latin American women in visual culture.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Melanie. I'm studying the unseen body in creative spaces, erasure and exposure of the queer. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Nina, and I studied the arts, education, and social justice.
Yeah.
I'm Joyce. I studied decolonial intimacies, indigenous politics of resistance.
Yeah.
I'm Victoria, and I studied
studied remembering or forgetting, navigating international conflict through collective memory.
Hi, I'm Iman, and I study monstrosity, the subaltern praxis. Or should I say I created it?
Hi, I'm Nunyala. I'm studying living artfully, art as ritual therapy and pathways of decoloniality.
I'm Naomi, and I'm studying Black political economy.
I'm Natalie, and I'm studying fashion history and gender studies.
And I studied phenomenological approaches to Black womanhood, specifically.
My name is Marie, and my concentration is the radical deception for survival, development in sub-Saharan Africa through social anthropology.
Hi, I'm Kira, and I study textiles and environmental justice.
Hi, I'm Ava, and I study woman, fugitive family, relationships, and identity. The transformative Black woman.
With all that out of the way, this may have gone a little bit too long, but thank you so much for coming on the stream, or the show rather, and hanging out with me. I will leave you a link to the Discord in the description of this video. If you like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys think about what I brought up on this episode. Have you seen The Last Samurai? Have you watched Shogun? What do you think about those? And what do you think about all of this YAASSSuke business? All right, thank you so much for checking out this video, and I'll talk to you all in the next one. Long live Vivi.